Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Daffodil Diaries podcast with the SFU Canadian Cancer Society. I'm Sophie and one of the marketing co-leads of the club and host of the Daffodil Diaries podcast.
And I'm Rhea. I am also one of the hosts for Daffodil Diaries. I'm one of the co-chairs.
In today's episode, we are so honored to be joined by Tate Bond, a UBCO graduate with a Bachelor of Management and an advocate for the Movember Foundation. After being diagnosed with testicular cancer at just 22 years old, Tate shares his personal journey, the impact of early detection, and his deep appreciation for initiatives like the Movember movement that raise awareness and support men's health.
Thank you so much again, Tate, for your time, for sharing your story, and for being an amazing example of advocacy for men's health. On behalf of SFUCCS, we wish you the best of luck for your future ahead.
Enjoy the episode. Welcome, Tate. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Let's just check in with each other. So how are we doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me out here. Good day overall. Can't complain too much. I just got back to work this past week, actually, so that's been really fun. I mean, it seems not fun, but when you're locked in your house for a little bit, I mean, I'm sure you remember from COVID, getting out of the house for anything, even if it's just a trip to the office, can be pretty fun. Other than that, I've recently just started run training again, so plan on doing the sun run in a few months. So excited for that. Beyond that, not a whole lot. I mean, my family from Kelowna was just in town, actually, so got to catch up with them. They came down for my sister's last weekend university basketball, so it was fun to hang out with them for a little bit. But yeah, overall, just been happy lately and been enjoying life, back into the swing of things, but yeah, happy to be out here.
We're going to jump into a story about his experience with testicular cancer and how Movember is important to him and how it has impacted him.
Yeah, so I guess I can take it I'll go back even further, back to probably high school, when I learned about, how to self-check for testicular cancer. I'll spare the details for the listeners on the podcast, but yeah, it was actually my mom's, one of her best friends taught me. She was the sexual health teacher at my high school, which was an interesting experience in of itself. But she taught me and all the other students how to do the self-check. And, I was aware of it, and I do it periodically over the years just to be 100% safe. But, I never thought I'd actually find anything doing it. I don't think really anyone in that classroom ever thought they would find anything doing it. I imagine I'm not alone in that. But yeah, fast forward to the summer of 2024, I believe it was, 2025, June of last year. I was actually doing one of those checks and I felt something that was a little off, like a lump that was very hard, jagged, just didn't feel normal. And in the moment, I knew something was up. I didn't know it was cancer right away. That thought was obviously in the back of my mind, but I kind of did a little bit of self-rationalizing. I thought, I'm young, I'm healthy. There's no way this could happen to me, I did a lot of Google searching, tried to find out anything else that could be. And I procrastinated for a few weeks about going to see the doctor. I figured, don't want to take time off work to go to a doctor's appointment. I didn't have a family doctor at that point, so it would have been a walk-in appointment. And I didn't want to spend my weekend, going to see the doctor for an appointment that, regardless of the outcome, wasn't going to be fun. So yeah, I waited a little bit. Eventually, it was July the 2nd. My work gave me an extra day off after Canada Day. And I realized that day that, I had no excuse. I know something's up. I got to go to the doctor to get this checked out. Thankfully, found a walk-in clinic downtown, which had appointments open that day. I found a doctor who's now my family doctor. His name's Akeem Oriadetu. If anyone's looking for doctor recommendations in the Vancouver area, would highly recommend him. But at the point, it was just a walk-in. I went in and he checked me up, and in the moment, he told me that he was almost certain that it was cancer. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and it was a bit of a shocking moment. I remember I know a lot of people would imagine it's sad. I couldn't really feel anything in that moment. I almost dissociated. It just felt so surreal, knowing that, after doing a little more research on my end, I realized how treatable of a form it is in the grand scheme of things. But in that moment, it was just so shocking. They did some other tests after, I had ultrasounds done. I had a CT scan done of the body. I had some blood work done just to diagnose, but it was all very quick. I got in contact with a urologist who did a surgery to take the tumor out about 3 weeks later, it was July 25th. I know I'm rattling off a lot of specific dates, but they're kind of hard to forget in scenarios like this. And yeah, overall, that 3 week to a month period felt like a long time in the grand scheme of things, even though it really wasn't. But yeah, I was very pleased with my urologist, Henry Tran, as well. If anyone needs urological help in the Vancouver area. No, I'm giving a lot of doctor plugs here, but I like to help the people out who saved my life in a lot of ways. And yeah, he treated me very well, and this recovery from the surgery was pretty quick. I was back to normal in about 6 to 8 weeks. Like, I couldn't lift anything for a little while, which I moved apartments during that time period, so it was a little bit inconvenient, but eventually got back to normal. A few weeks after my surgery, I got in contact with my oncologist, Dr. Christian Kolmensberger, and he gave me the rundown of what the next 5 years would look like. Because at that point in time, I thought that all the treatment that I was going to need was the surgery. 80% of the time in my cases, surgery is all you need to cure testicular cancer, especially since I was fortunate enough to have the less aggressive version. And the cure rate from that surgery was I think he said 2/3 usually, but it was about 80% odds that this would be the only thing that I need. And so what we agreed on and what he recommended for me was just a 5-year monitoring plan, where roughly every 6 months I'd get a CT scan of my full abdomen to check for, any spread to my lymph nodes or my internal organs, because generally the first place it spreads is the lymph nodes in the abdomen. So they wanted to do those checks. I'd also get blood work done to see if there's any high tumor markers in my blood, which is an indication of whether or not the cancer's come back. But overall, that was the plan for the next roughly 5 years or so, with reductions in the number of appointments per year as you get later on. And I thought at the time that was that. There's an 80% chance this is all good. But, it was obviously an emotional moment. But I remember even at the time feeling a little guilty calling myself a cancer survivor, because my experience was just so easy compared to a lot of other people's. Regardless, though, I did get the opportunity to help with Movember. That occurred in November, obviously, of last year. And yeah, the office that I work for, my company KPMG, does a lot of strong fundraising, and I indicated that I was interested in helping out. They allowed me to do so. And ironically enough, while I was doing the fundraising and support, I had a meeting with my oncologist and found out that the cancer had come back in my lymph nodes. So, which was obviously very shocking. The initial phone call was with one of his residents, told me that they had seen some odd growth in my lymph nodes. It was a little inconclusive at first, but they'd contact the radiologists. And after a second look, it was pretty conclusive as to what it was. And the cancer had come back in some of the local lymph nodes. Now, he was very clear that the odds were still very good. It was upwards of 95%, I think about 98% chance that this is going to cure me, and about a 92-93% chance that it's the only additional treatment that I'll need to cure me. He did give me a couple other options. He gave me radiation therapy as well as surgery, but the option that he recommended and the option that I ultimately went with, I don't know if you can tell under the hat, is chemotherapy. And yeah, he recommended 9 weeks of chemotherapy, which consisted of three-week cycles. It was the first week is 5 days, 4 to 5 hours a day. And then the next 2 weeks after that, there's 1 day of treatment for about an hour, and that cycle repeats 3 times. So we started that in November of last year, and it actually recently wrapped up January 19th. And just recently after that, I've started to get back to normal. It takes a few weeks for your immune system to fully recover, but this is actually timed quite well as I've started to get back into my normal life after this.
Wow, congratulations for completing chemotherapy so recently.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh my God. How are you feeling as of recently? I know you're saying you're getting back into the swing of it again, but obviously it's an adjustment. So how have you been kind of coping these past few weeks?
Yeah, I think overall, honestly, there's a lot going in, but I feel like the chemotherapy was more manageable than I was expecting. I think that, they gave me a lot of great medications that made the process a lot easier. I also had my parents down for some of the heavier weeks. They came down from Kelowna to stay with me, which really helped. My sister also lives with me, and she was there to support the whole time. And, I tried to stay focused as much as I could during the treatment. Like, I would go for a walk every day. I know I like to be pretty physically active, so it was a bit difficult. Tried to, run a couple times. That didn't go well. Tried to do some at-home workouts. That didn't go well. So just kept walking to, both keep me physically and mentally healthy. But yeah, during the treatment, it was just a lot of staying at home, a lot of working from home, actually. I was able to continue working during the lighter weeks, which I actually quite appreciated because it gave me something to do and made it clear to me that, like, my body might be going through a lot right now, but my mind is still as sharp as it ever could be. And yeah, I think that overall, the biggest thing I've just adjusted these past few weeks is just getting back to normal life, Like, I think 2 weeks ago was when my immune system started to fully recover, assuming its recovery is on track with what my doctor said. And yeah, I've started to, start leaving the house again, out of COVID times, basically. That's what it felt like a repeat of. And yeah, I've been really grateful to get back to some sort of normalcy lately.
Thank you for coming here, like being one of the places. I'm really honored personally. Yes. So thank you for taking out the time, especially after such a extraneous month that you've had. There was something else I wanted to add. I wanted to go back to what you said about having it easier than most people. I want to tell you no. That's the big false, it's a big no. That's a myth. Everyone's journey is different. You going through that diagnosis period is already, a lot. And it doesn't matter how long or short your journey is. Your journey is just as validated, and your treatment, it doesn't matter, again, what you had gone through during that journey and whatnot. So, that really stood out to me. I was like, no, that's not true.
No, absolutely. I'm not trying to discredit anyone who's gone through that experience as well. I think that's just, my thoughts is, okay, how can my experience compare to someone who's, been through several rounds of chemo, was on the verge of death, and came back? To me, that always felt more inspiring than just someone who had a simple surgery. But I think that, now looking back at it, I should have been more appreciative of how much it took to get through that.
I am glad that the process was it was manageable for you, and you're able to still do things, and you're still able to keep up with your hobbies, and you're actively choosing to stay healthy and to take care of yourself. And also something a bit different with your case compared to others is that this one is probably the most recent compared to the other guests that we've had. So I think this is a really interesting perspective. And as someone who wasn't diagnosed as a kid, I think it's also different when it's diagnosed at a later stage in life, especially in early to almost mid-20s as well. So from this age, which is our age, and then a lot of our audience's age. So I wonder what that experience was like.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference I'd say from being say a kid compared to a younger adult is full well what's going on, and you in a way feel responsible. Obviously my parents were there for me throughout the whole treatment. They came down during the weeks, they'd cook for me, they'd clean for me. But at the end of the day, a lot of those weeks is just me taking care of myself. I think that was the biggest thing I had to adjust to, was just, being willing to not only, I would ask for help when I needed it. I'd reach out to them for certain things. I'd reach out to my sister, friends in the area for certain things. But at the end of the day, I really tried to take a sense of ownership. And I think that's the biggest difference as an adult, is you feel, obviously everyone wants to help. Everyone who you talk to is willing to do a lot for you. But I found it really rewarding to just take ownership of my own situation. This disease, even when I'm fighting it, doesn't define me. And I think that being able to live a relatively normal life was really helpful. I think, if anything, I'm actually, in a way, grateful that this came up when I was younger as opposed to older. If I was going to get testicular cancer at any age, 22, 23 isn't a bad age to get it, because, the chemotherapy is a strong group of drugs. Those are a few very, very powerful drugs from what my oncologist told me. But in a lot of ways, because I was young and otherwise healthy, my experience with it would be very different than someone, even someone who's 40 or 50 would have had. And then if it was someone who's, a senior citizen, I don't know if they could survive the doses that I was on. So I think, if anything, I'm grateful that if I was to have this experience, I had it as young as I did. And, it kind of shapes my perspective for the rest of my life. It's just going to be a part of me. It's not something that'll define me like it would at a future age. And I'm just glad that I have my whole life to look forward to, which is something that, maybe I wouldn't have thought at the start of the process.
I was going to add on to that. Even when you said you had to, like, go to the doctors very often, like, I understand how daunting that is. And then having to, like, I don't know if it's just our age, but I just find it daunting. And I'm like, oh, I have to actually, like, take leadership of my own life and, like, get those health checkups. And then having to figure out that diagnosis, I'm assuming alone, that must have been also quite a bit. So, like, you're already navigating how to, like, take control of your life, your health, then now dealing with this huge diagnosis and just trying to figure out how to be an adult all at the same time. I have really big respect for you for that. So you're doing incredible.
Absolutely.
No, I can't imagine.
And like adding on to that, I think nowadays conversations around cancer and ownership is very much more, I guess, not mainstream, but it's more talked about. So I think in that sense, you have a lot of support with you, regardless if it's in person. There's a lot of online support you can fall back on, and there's a lot of conversations surrounding cancer support and cancer awareness. So I think in a way that it can also be very, very helpful for someone who might be going through it alone too. But we're overall very happy for you, and all the doctors that were really helpful for you as well. We're very happy.
Yeah, hopefully they get some business out of this. In some ways, I mean, hopefully it's good business at the very least, not cases like mine, but hopefully it's people willing to take ownership. Like, I know it struggled for me, especially because at the start of the process, I didn't have a family doctor. I got really lucky in that the walk-in provider that I went to was accepting patients as a family doctor. So, lifesaver, I got the chance to claim him as my family doctor right away, which, from working in my job with healthcare organizations, I know how long the process can be for a lot of people to get a doctor. So I got really lucky in that scenario, which feels weird to say about a cancer appointment, but I think in a lot of ways I got very lucky throughout my process.
I was going to say, another big barrier in BC, I feel like, as well, and Canada as a whole, is like even getting that diagnosis in the first place or getting checked up on time or whatever. So, and then like listening to how you're saying like how lucky you are, I was going to say like what has kept your motivation so high during this journey? Because the way you're talking, I'm like, wow, you're so incredible. So I just want to pick at your brain and be like, what your mindset was like.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that it's just something you really can't control at the end of the day, especially, like, in my case, like, not that it's ever someone's fault for getting cancer, but in my case, there was no lifestyle choices that I really could have made to prevent this. Like, people don't really know what causes testicular cancer still to this day, but the assumption is that it's almost entirely based on your genetic code. So it's really something that was going to happen regardless and is entirely out of my control. So at the end of the day, really what I thought is like the only thing that being down about my situation it could do is make my recovery worse, if anything. Like I wouldn't be mentally healthy. I wouldn't be willing to do steps that the doctors would recommend to, make the treatment better. Wouldn't be willing to keep myself physically active as much as I could, mentally stimulated through work and school, or extra studies, I should say, and all that. I think that just having, a sense of focusing on the things that I can control really helped me and really kept me grounded throughout the process. I think that a lot of people that I talked to were really surprised that I was so okay. Like, I feel like, if anything, it made it feel not as heavy when I was talking to other people. If I can at least, not necessarily, like, it's not a mask per se, but like show that, hey, this fight isn't defining me. Like this is just a temporary battle and I'm doing okay through it. I think that makes it feel a lot more manageable for other people.
Before your diagnoses, what has been your perspective like on cancer? Because I'm assuming you didn't know much about it or got involved in the community as much as you are now, right? So when you were diagnosed, how did that perspective change for you and the things you started to do? And then we can even move on to your involvement with Movember and all the amazing work you've done. So
yeah, like you said before that, like I had pretty minimal awareness of cancer. Like I'd done some donations. Like I know my office puts on like a workout to conquer cancer every May. So I'd been involved in that. Like I'd fundraised before. I think everyone has been affected by cancer in some way. It's been kind of hard to find people that aren't. Like I know I'd had grandparents pass away from cancer, but yeah, it hadn't been as personally touched as before. So I think that I'd done a lot of research. Like the 3 weeks between my diagnosis and my surgery initially, I would say almost every hour of my free time while I was awake was spent on websites Googling about testicular cancer or just cancer as a whole, which I'm sure is the case for a lot of patients, you know? You just want to understand what's going on. I think that in a lot of ways, like, cancer awareness is talked about, but I think that a lot of people don't know the specifics of it. I certainly didn't going in. So just knowing, like, I wanted to know what I could expect from my treatment. You know, I've always been the type of person who likes to have control over your life and things that happen to you internally. So just being able to research as much as possible was like a way of keeping myself sane and know, like, have at least a rough idea of what's happening to me. Like, it's weird because, like, I got to the doctor's appointment with the oncologist and I think he expected me to have lots of questions. It's like, I've researched everything you've said to me over the last 2 months. You know, I don't have a ton of questions for you right now. This is exactly the result I expected, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think that I've just took on a lot of responsibility in, like, Googling that. Not that anyone was forcing me to Google. Responsibility is maybe a bad word for that, but yeah, I spent a lot of my own time doing that research. As far as Movember, that just kind of came up through my work. That's another event that I participated in the past. And the Movember resources were actually a resource that I looked at a lot during my diagnosis. They have lots of testicular cancer pages about awareness, treatment, you know, survivors resources, a lot of valuable information on there. So when the organizer at my office reached out and asked if I was interested in joining, I don't even think he was aware at the time that I'd been through that. I was jumped on the opportunity, and I thought that that was really, really valuable. And I debated whether or not I would share my story, because to that point I'd been very private about it. Like, I told my family, told a few close friends, but I hadn't told, you know, extended friends. I hadn't told anyone at work. I wasn't, you know, walking around in the community. I hadn't really done any fundraising for it because I honestly just really didn't want to draw a lot of attention to myself in a way. Like, I you know, thought that, I don't know if this is the right way to phrase it. I didn't know how many people would notice, to be honest. I think that a lot of people I thought that people would say, oh, you're milking this cancer thing, you know? Like, since you'd gone through such a lighter form of treatment compared to some other people. But when I shared my story, I got so many powerful messages. Not only did I raise $2,000 for it or so, but I got messages from people who'd been cancer survivors. I, you know, got someone who had lost their son to testicular cancer while he was a teenager reach out. And, you know, sharing those initial stories made me realize that, like, okay, this is meaningful. What you did, what you went through can really help a lot of people.
You talking about your story doesn't mean, like, oh, like, hey, like, I had cancer, feel bad for me, da, da, da. You're not flashing it, you're not milking it out. It doesn't make up who you are. It's just something that was a part of you in your life, but is, again, like you said earlier, it doesn't define you in any sort of way or the person you are. If anything, I would be like, whoa, like, you're so amazing. So there shouldn't even be a negative connotation about sharing your own story because you're the one who went through it.
And I also wanted to touch on the amount of education you did for yourself. Mm-hmm. I think a great way, if you're going through something, even health related, just anything in life, is really taking the time to dig into it and research about it, look into it, take time with yourself. I think that's a great way to ease the anxiety and to take control in a way. So I'm glad that you took that time to yourself. You know, when you were not busy, that's what you were doing, right? And so when you did consult with your doctors, they were surprised, right, with how confident you were. And yeah, like, when you take the time to research, you build that confidence for yourself. So I think it's a great way to cope, and it's a great way to deal with the anxiety that might come about it.
And even then, like, I guess this isn't the case for every cancer survivor. When I did the first research, like, I found out that, you know, my survival odds were pretty good. Like, that was actually really comforting when I could, you know, walk out of the doctor's office. First thing I did, obviously, pulled up Google, looked up testicular cancer survival rate, and said it was 95%. If it's caught stage 1, it's usually upwards of 99%. So that, you know, obviously was still really painful in the moment, but it comforted me. I think that, you know, after that was, if anything, what I'd say is the hardest part of the whole treatment, which was calling my mom right away to tell her that I'd had cancer. Like, I'd say that was harder than any part of the surgery or chemo, you know? and just seeing the reaction, from her. Dad called me right after. He'd lost both his parents to cancer. He held it together very well on the call, but would imagine that was not easy for him to hear that at all. So, I was really thankful to be in touch with them throughout that, and, I was grateful to have them in my place, but that first call was pretty tough.
So aside from family, were there any individual issues that you want to dive into? Because a lot of your experience so far has been very positive, so I was curious if there were any challenges on your behalf.
Yeah, so I think, if anything, the most challenging thing I'd say, the first day of chemotherapy was pretty tough, I'll be honest. I think that, maybe I messed up my medication timing, maybe it was just my body's reaction to the drug, but that first day, I was laying on my bed after the treatment, could barely hold down. I remember, I couldn't eat a bagel with cream cheese. I had to nibble at the edges without feeling like I was going to puke. We had a bucket beside my bed, but, I couldn't even get the energy to roll over and puke if I wanted to. I remember I had to go to the washroom, looked at myself in the mirror, and I was about the same color as your shirt. So
Really?
Yeah, it was it was a pretty rough day, and that day I felt like, is this what the next 2 months are going to be like, That was the thought that went through my mind, which was pretty scary, but overall the rest of that week was, it wasn't easy by any means. It was a little queasy, it was like having a bit of a hangover in a way, That's what it felt like. It was just walking around, a little queasy, but, I've done things hungover that were pretty fun, so, didn't affect me from enjoying my life.
Nothing too different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think definitely, that transition from being completely healthy to all of a sudden not being able to even roll over to throw up, right?
Yeah.
So before you got your diagnosis, what was your life like? How active were you, and how much did this take a toll on that?
Yeah, I was a very active person before that. I was the type of person who, is in my work's office, first of all, bright and early. I work with a lot of Eastern time zone clients in my consulting job, so I have to get to the office pretty early, but I pride myself on being a hard worker and being there a lot. So having to, take a step back from working and look at my own priorities and recognize that, maybe I'm not going to be the first one in, last one out during this time period was something that I had to really adjust to and really reframe how I think of myself, because that had always been, from school into work, something that really defined me was being a hard worker and being a high achiever. And outside of work, I was pretty physically active. Ever since I moved down to Vancouver from Kelowna, I'd gotten really into running. I'd done a couple races, was preparing for a half marathon in the fall. So realizing that I was going to have surgery that would prevent me from doing that was, a tough realization to see. And then as soon as I started to get back into it, feeling healthy, I had 2 months and then chemotherapy hit, which took another toll on me physically. In some ways, I'm still recovering. My cardio's gotten back to an okay place, the first few days after. I remember I was running at a pace that was just above walking, and I remember I have this Garmin watch here, seeing my heart rate spike, and I was getting so mad at the watch. Why is my heart rate so high when I'm basically walking? I remember getting passed on the seawall by just about everyone. I saw some grandparents pass me, and I was like, is this my life? Is this what's going to be going on?
Yeah.
And then I remember even during the treatment, I was trying to stay active and healthy as much as possible. I tried to do a push-up, and my arms were in so much pain from mostly the IVs, and it was tough to accept that, there's going to be a period where I'm not as healthy as I could be, but in the long run, it's what's best for you. So I think that was a big adjustment.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that. Yeah, any sort of big transitional change in your life is not easy to deal with, right? And when you were saying even at the seawall, seeing all these grandparents, it's is this going to be my new reality? But I think in also a way it gives you a bigger perspective on life and the things that you are grateful for and the things that you are appreciative that you have. And it kind of solidifies that more for you since you are much better now. So you are able to do all those things again, right?
Yeah, I think for the most part, getting back into it, obviously not, given that I ended a month ago, I'm not 100% back to where I used to be, but I'm glad to see that, this isn't going to define the rest of my life for the most part, like there's a couple things I can't do. The weirdest one was apparently I can't go scuba diving for some reason because one of the drugs is really tough on the lungs. So, I've never been a fan of deep water anyways, but that was one of the ones that was weird when I read through it. And it's like, okay, I guess if I was a scuba diver, this would be really painful, but or if I was an astronaut or something and I had to go to space and put on an oxygen tank. Yeah. But to do the things that I do on a daily basis, like I'm thankful that I was able to, get back to essentially normal. And I think it actually helped me in a lot of ways, like focus on my health as a whole, like recognize that, I should get a good night of sleep. I shouldn't be up either working on my laptop trying to build some PowerPoint for a client or scrolling through Instagram Reels in my bed, Neither of those things are as important as getting a good night of sleep. Neither of those things, cooking meals for myself, like making sure that I'm, buying lots of healthy foods, making sure that I can prioritize that over, both work and some other just extracurricular activities, like just taking the chance to prioritize my health is something that's been really key.
I wanted to talk about hair loss as from a male's perspective because we did touch on hair loss.
Yes, a lot of our female show it off for the people on camera. It's growing back slowly, but at first I thought my dad is bald. Bullied him a lot for it growing up because I'd heard the story that you get your hair from your mom's side, and my grandpa on that side's in his 80s with a full head of hair. So I always bullied him thinking that he'd be fully bald before me. So I guess maybe this was a twisted form of karma. But I think that I wasn't looking forward to getting my hair taken away during the treatment. Like I'd put in a bit of an embarrassing amount of effort into the hair before. I'd spend time in the morning styling it, making sure it's the perfect way. Like I'd do some research on like what the best type of shampoo is, to make it look good. So that was a little tough to see, but eventually like about 3 weeks in, I started noticing a couple extra hairs around the house. Then, I'd notice a few days later, like 1 or 2 falling off. Then I felt like not necessarily clumps. My doctor told me there'd be clumps, but I think I shaved it before because I just saw like maybe clumps of 3 or 4 falling out at a time. And it was getting a little annoying to deal with. So that day I just decided, today's the day. I'm shaving it down, and then I had a buzz cut for a little bit before it all fell out. Like I took some pictures of it, tried to look tough because I thought it made me look tough. But honestly, the head shape wasn't as bad as I was expecting. I think that overall it is definitely easier for a man, even in his 20s. Like there's not a lot of bald dudes in their 20s, but they exist, and it was easier to process, I'd say. Like I didn't consider getting a wig at all or anything like that. Like, I'd wear a toque when I went out because it was the winter and it was pretty cold. But I've gotten used to it, and I think that people actually complimented me on it. Like they were like, you pull it off. So
I was going to say that too. I was like, you see that?
So I was like, maybe this isn't the worst thing. And it's slowly starting to come back. Facial hairs started to come back before. The one thing I have noticed is that it's a different color, kind of.
Oh.
Like, a doctor I'd read mention, and the doctor mentioned too, like, it might be a slightly different color, it might be curlier. Like, I used to have a light brown beard before with flecks of red, and now, I don't know, I kind of shaved it a little bit today, but it's very dark right now.
Oh. Interesting.
I don't know if that'll be permanent, but interesting to see,
You know how, like, for women, like, it makes us feel more feminine, and so that's something that's really hard to let go of. I know facial hair is something men tend to take pride in, so was there, like, anything like that you had faced or anything?
Yeah, I definitely wasn't excited to lose any sort of hair.
Yeah.
But, I think overall, after a little bit, I got used to it. I was like, after a few weeks, it just started to become normal,
Yeah.
And, like, I would have liked to have kept the hair, but... Yeah, if it was something that I had to sacrifice to get through the treatment, then so be it,
When you lose that part of yourself, it also gives you greater appreciation for it. So eventually when it does come back, you just feel a lot more love towards that part of yourself. So I think it's really important. There's a lot of perspective taking that happens when something like cancer happens, and it takes away so much of your life. So it also gives you a greater appreciation for those little things as well.
I'm excited for you to get back into researching those good hair products.
Oh,
yes. I feel that on another level. Yes.
I remember feeling my head shape before the treatment, and I was wondering, like, am I going to have a good head? You know? But, yeah, I'm glad it didn't look too bad.
You do pull it off.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Overall, what things have impacted you for the better, your growth, things that you've gained over the years, or not over the years, but through this experience, and the amount of strength that you've built for yourself, and then you touched on this earlier, but your advocacy for Movember and the community aspect of it also.
Yeah, I think it really, the positives of it, I think it really helped reshape my perspective. Like, I got to hear, obviously every single family member talk to me. Like, I got to hear from all their perspectives. They all made the effort to call me, whether that was my parents coming down for my treatment, my sister being with me the whole time and making sure, checking on me every day that I was doing okay. My grandparents checking with me, like, they kept an eye on me throughout the whole treatment. Like, I know I can't imagine what they were thinking, like, oh, is my grandkid going to be gone before me? But yeah, they kept an eye on me. Like, I had, aunts and uncles, like, I have some local to me that offered a lot of help and, like, called on me during the treatment. And yeah, it was really cool to see everyone that I know get in. Like, one of my best friend, like, his mom dealt with breast cancer a few years ago. So I got the chance to, like, talk to him about it a lot. Like, we were able to chat a lot, and he kind of shared her experience and talked to me, kept checking on me. I think she was very curious as well. So that was really cool to have his support throughout the process too. And then beyond that, other friends talked to me a lot. Like, I got to go back to my hometown, Kelowna, around Christmas and visit with a few friends, which I thought was really important because I didn't get to see as many people here during the treatment. So I think it made me grateful. And then, the amount of people that reached out, expressed support to me, whether that was people that I had met years ago, people that I hadn't even met at all, that heard my story and wanted to reach out and experience, like, even this podcast. Like, I hadn't met either of you before today. So it was really cool to see the message from you. It's kind of ironic that I got it right when I was starting chemo. So I was like, all right, I'll have more to share in February. So, but yeah, that was really cool to hear as well. And just seeing the level of support, even getting back to work, like, seeing the amount of people that really cared was really touching. And, just getting back to a normal life. And I'm really grateful for the fact that it's, like, kind of reshaped my perspective on a lot of things and really made me realize at the end of the day, my health is what's important and the people closest to me are what's important. Mm-hmm. And then I guess beyond that, for fundraising, getting involved with Movember last year was honestly amazing. Like, it was super powerful to see the amount of people that I had an impact on, the amount of money that I could raise for this cause that I really care about. I was one of the organizers for my office's Movember event. The team member before, who was running the program and leading it, reached out to a bunch of people asking if they'd be interested in helping. I don't even think he knew that I had gone through this experience before, and I mentioned that I was interested in helping and sharing my story. Like, I made a couple social media posts about it. The amount of support that I got was incredible. I had someone reach out to me whose son had passed away from testicular cancer as a teenager, and that was really touching to hear her story. Actually, I think it was her nephew, actually, that had passed away. And, she was really grateful that I shared the story. I had other people that had gone through cancer reach out that I, maybe I knew before but hadn't heard from in a while. So it was really cool to see that I could touch people's stories with my own experience. And then, as a little bit of a plug, I'll be in May helping out with our Work Out to Conquer Cancer fundraiser, which raises money for BC Cancer. That I'm really excited to be a part of as well, getting to raise even more money, especially since November was when I got my second diagnosis. So glad to be on the other side now, and I have even more of a story to share in May.
Amazing.
So cool. I'm excited for you.
Yeah,
Yay.
so many fun things and so many impactful things coming up.
I was going to tie into, like, men's mental health when you were saying just sharing your story brought this community you didn't really expect. And I think it just emphasizes and shows how important it is to try to be vulnerable, especially as a man, especially as a young adult. Like, it is quite a bit of a challenge, but you don't know what the outcome is until you try, and I think it's really important. And it can be for the better. In your case, you had this whole community. You're like, oh wow, like here, back home. So I think that's always really important to kind of hear other men's perspective and their stories and see how well it worked out for them. And I don't think we give men enough credit for being vulnerable. So
And I think that, my experience was maybe not the typical, you'd think of men's mental health experience where you're scared of being called like weak or something. I was more scared of anything of like being called like an attention seeker or someone who's like trying to fish for money, because, I've always been the type of person who's like a little more introverted, a little more in the background. Like I wouldn't have been the type of person to like walk around to people that I didn't know much and talk about my cancer experience. So, it was definitely an adjustment for me to like be comfortable with sharing my story, but knowing that could help people, whether that's, someone who hears my story, feels something similar, goes to the doctor and gets their life saved, or, someone who sees my post, has money to contribute and gives money to a foundation that helps people dealing with cancer and potentially leads to life saved as well. That in the end of the day means a lot more than maybe a slight hit to my personal pride of, being this nonchalant, stoic person.
Yeah, you never know how you're going to impact other people.
Yeah, and now you've unlocked this greater purpose in life to change people's lives, to support people, to advocate for men's health, and that's amazing. And we're very proud of you, and I'm so happy for you as well.
Yeah, no, thank you again for having me here as well. I know it's a lot of great initiatives that you guys do. I know students aren't the ones that are always most impacted by cancer, but it does affect everyone in a way, and it's great to see that SFU is a program like this.
But yeah, I was going to say thank you so much again for taking time off of work too and getting here in like this crappy weather, but up the mountain.
You've never done anything like this before, no?
Yeah.
No, first podcast recording interview type thing ever. Like, I know I've had family members do it because they were better athletes than I was. They get sports interviews, but this is my first one.
That's amazing. Thank you for having us be with your first
I feel honored now.
I feel honored.
Honored to be here.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to share? Anything?
I think if anything, I'd just say, if you're in my situation and you've gone through health challenges, like, don't be afraid to speak about it. Like, you're not gonna come off as someone who's fishing for attention. You're not gonna come off as someone who's desperate to, make something about them. Like, no one's going to judge you. They're going to feel sympathy for you, and they're going to want to know how they can support. And I think that's something that I would have liked to hear at the start of my treatment.
It's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Your story is your story and yours only.
Yeah.
So never let anyone take that away from you, and never let anyone's opinions take that away from you. And it's your platform, it's your life, and it's your impact. So I'd like to give you one final thank you. And we wish you guys at home an amazing rest of your day. And just know that you're supported no matter what.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.